Alright everyone, it's time for Occult Literature video number 133, The Astrological Physician. As always, link in the description of my edition of this work on Amazon. Second and third links are to my books, blogs, where you can find similar works. I didn't know exactly what category to put this in, because it's an interesting work. It sort of fuses astrology with medicine and a little bit more than that, actually, because it also talks about, hey, you know, your disease might be caused by witches or by demons, so we're going to learn how to properly diagnose whether that's likely. I ended up putting it in the herbal category, actually, with the medical works. The folk medicine, herbals, and sort of the medical history side of things. The quack medicine, as you might term it. Interesting work, mid-1600s, so, you know, middle of the 17th century, by William Andrews. And it posits that if you look at the time that a disease begins, if you look at the movements of the planets and stars and so forth, you can actually sort of tell what the disease is caused by according to the theory of the four humors, of course. And you can then learn how to treat it. It also tells you whether it's likely whether the patient will recover or not. Now, of course, anyone looking at the actual evidence knows that this is a quack system of medical reading. But at the time it seemed sensible. It's an example of early proto-medicine that attempted to standardize and quantify things according to what we would consider basic scientific knowledge. The movement of the celestial bodies, of course, is more predictable than the things they had been using in medicine before, but fell short, fell out of favor fairly quickly, and is replaced by better systems. We're talking in the Revolutionary period, not even quite 100 years later. This type of medicine falls completely out of favor. The astrological later gets swept up in fortune tellers and general zodiacs that are then applied to people's general health readings. And that's what we have actually today within that superstitious sort of stuff. And it is, I mean, it is superstition. It's not authentic occultism. It's sort of the Christian mysticism side of things, which is funny because modern religious Christians hate zodiacs and astrology and say it's sinful. You're actually the ones that invented these things for the most part, or began using them for anything beyond, you know, the most general, the love-related stuff. But it's an interesting work. It's 44 pages technically, although I counted 43. Amazon claims it's 44. I'm not sure why the discrepancy, actually. Very interesting work. Definitely highly recommended. If you're interested in astrology or sort of the history of mysticism, you're going to want this book. Anything to do with folk magic, definitely. This is a very, very strange system of medicine, really, that people for a while used. It was a popular system for a very brief period until it's supplanted by others that are equally superstitious, but nonetheless were slightly more, they were slightly more spit-shined. They were a little bit more reliable. You see, if you've got a system that's dichotomous, you got a 50-50 chance of being right. The problem with this system is it's not dichotomous. It's got multiple sort of classifications that you can use for these diseases. You've got four humors. Well, therein lies the problem. The accuracy is potentially far less than 50-50, and of course this means that it's supplanted later by systems that are no more honest, honestly, no more accurate, technically speaking, but which reduce the number of possible classifications. For instance, living versus dying, well, there, you know, you can institute more classifications than that. Ultimately, though, it's basically, hey, does the patient live or does the patient die? And as long as they weren't in their old age, chances were they probably lived, even if they were crippled for life. So that's something to take into consideration. It's an interesting piece of medical history. Actually, one of the most strange pieces that I've ever edited in my entire life. In all the years that I've been editing, this may take the cake as the most strange system that I've ever come across. And that includes all the fortune tellers. That includes the more out there oracles, the Shakespearean oracle, and even things like that. This may be actually stranger than most of them. That's about all. Peace out.